Late on an April night in 2021, sheriff's deputies in rural Colorado entered a house on a tip about a dead body. In a back bedroom, their flashlights illuminated a horrific sight: the mummified corpse of a woman laid out in what appeared to be a shrine. The body was wrapped inside a sleeping bag and entwined with strands of Christmas lights. Glittering makeup had been painted around the empty eye sockets of the decaying face. It was as if someone had tried to adorn the corpse, to give it a kind of reverence in death. Authorities soon identified the remains. They belonged to 45-year-old Amy Carlson, known to her followers as Mother God. In the living room, a group of Carlson's devotees stood by calmly as deputies made the discovery. They did not seem upset or even surprised. In fact, they insisted to the officers that their leader had not truly died at all. She had merely ascended. This bizarre, grisly scene marked the culmination of a years-long saga surrounding Carlson and the Love Has Won cult. To understand how a one-time straight-A student and McDonald's manager ended up as a mummified cult leader in a mountain town, we must trace Amy Carlson's story from the very beginning, following its strange and tragic path step by step. Amy Carlson was born in 1975 and grew up in small-town Kansas and Oklahoma. By all accounts, her early life was relatively ordinary. She sang in the school choir, got good grades, and was described as bright and personable. Her parents divorced when she was young, and Amy bounced between homes, but nothing in her childhood hinted at the infamous future that awaited her. As a young woman, however, Amy began searching for something beyond the confines of her everyday life. She married and divorced 3 times by her early 20s and had 3 children by 3 different fathers. According to her family, Carlson was never particularly maternal. Parenthood didn't seem to fulfill her. She was restless and drawn to spiritual ideas. By her late 20s, living in Texas and working as a McDonald's store manager, Amy spent her off hours delving into New Age forums online. She became an avid participant in spiritual communities where users traded esoteric ideas about metaphysics and mysticism. There, Amy encountered a like-minded stranger, a man who called himself Father God. This online acquaintance convinced Amy Carlson that she was divine, telling her that she was an incarnated godly being on a special mission. It was a seductive idea. Around 2006, at the age of 30, Amy abruptly abandoned her conventional life. She left her husband, left her children, quit her job, and departed Texas to join this man in Colorado. Amy Carlson was convinced she had a grand destiny. She believed she was chosen to usher humanity into a new era of enlightenment. Upon arriving in Colorado, Amy stepped fully into her new identity as Mother God. Together with her companion, the self-proclaimed Father God, she formed a small spiritual group. In its early years, they called their movement the Galactic Federation of Light, framing it as a gathering of divine beings on Earth. Amy told people she was literally the mother of all creation, the embodiment of God in a female form. Her partner took on the mantle of her male counterpart. In 2009, Amy Carlson began broadcasting her spiritual teachings online. These were earnest, homemade videos in which she appeared as a soft-spoken, doe-eyed woman expounding on New Age philosophy and universal love. Over time, her following slowly grew. By the early 2010s, a handful of devotees had moved in with Carlson, dedicating themselves to her completely. Around this period, the group adopted a new name that would soon become infamous: Love Has Won. In the mid-2010s, as Amy's message spread, more followers arrived. One early convert was Miguel Lamboy, who became instrumental in running the group's logistics and finances. Others trickled in from across the country after discovering Carlson online. They were often young, idealistic seekers drawn by Amy's promise of a world transformation. The group did not stay put in one place for long. Love Has Won became somewhat nomadic. Carlson and her devotees traveled through Colorado, Oregon, California, and Florida over the years, living in rented houses or campgrounds, holding spiritual retreats and trying to recruit more members. By 2018, they settled back in Colorado, establishing a home base in the tiny town of Moffett, at the edge of the remote San Luis Valley. At its height, Love Has Won had roughly 24 core members living with Amy Carlson full-time. Inside the group, Amy's role was absolute. She was not just a pastor or a teacher. To her followers, she was God. Carlson cultivated a theology that put herself at the center of the cosmos. She claimed to be a divine being 19 billion years old, the 534th reincarnation of God on earth. I have lived past lives as Jesus Christ, Cleopatra, Joan of Arc, Marilyn Monroe, and Harriet Tubman. She told her followers that she remembered being crucified as Jesus, and that she retained full consciousness of all her former incarnations. Amy also asserted that Donald Trump had been her father in a past life, and that the comedian Robin Williams now served as an angel on her galactic team, communicating prophetic messages to her from the spirit realm. The doctrine of Love Has Won was an eclectic mix of New Age mysticism, beliefs in ascended masters and galactic aliens, plus a dose of conspiracy thinking about dark forces in the world. At the core of it all, however, was the worship of Amy Carlson herself. She preached that the 3D world, the reality most people live in, was an illusion mired in negativity. She and her devotees, she said, were operating at a 5D level of consciousness, a higher vibrational state of love and unity. Amy promised that a great cosmic event was imminent. She would lead 144,000 chosen people into the 5D heaven on earth, delivering them from suffering. This was, to her followers, a holy mission. And Mother God was the linchpin of it all, the only one who could manifest this destiny. Within the group's isolated world, Carlson's word was law. She acted as a spiritual monarch over her little kingdom. For most of Love Has Won's existence, Amy also maintained a counterpart in leadership, the position of Father God, typically held by her current boyfriend or consort. Over the years, several different men cycled through the role as Amy's partners changed. The final Father God was Jason Castillo, who joined the group around 2018. Castillo, a middle-aged man with a history of criminal charges and substance abuse, became Amy's boyfriend and second-in-command. By many accounts, he was volatile and abrasive. Still, Carlson welcomed him as her divine equal in theory, though in practice, no one ever eclipsed Amy's authority. Day-to-day life in the Love Has Won household was tightly controlled and deliberately harsh. Amy demanded total loyalty and enforced it by wearing down her followers physically and mentally. They addressed her always as Mom or Mother God, and in return, she often called them her children. The group's daily schedule revolved entirely around serving Carlson. Members rose early each morning to prepare Mother God's breakfast and attend to whatever she needed. They broadcast daily live streams in which they promoted Amy's teachings, solicited donations, and sold New Age merchandise, crystals, supplements, and so-called healing products. Viewers from around the world would tune in, sometimes paying money for spiritual sessions or personal messages from Carlson. Off-camera, life was brutal. Sleep was severely restricted. Members were underfed. Punishments were routine. Privacy was non-existent. Every element of life, food, sleep, work, relationships, was micromanaged. What was framed as spiritual discipline systematically broke people down. Despite these extreme rules, Amy Carlson did not follow them herself. Alcohol was forbidden for followers, but Amy drank heavily. Night after night, she consumed large quantities of liquor. Her behavior grew erratic, abusive, and incoherent. These episodes were often broadcast live. In one notorious moment, visibly intoxicated, she screamed profanities at her followers while they bowed their heads and apologized. These outbursts did not drive them away. They accepted them as tests of devotion. Carlson's authority was absolute. Doubt was punished. Dissent was cast out. Any contradiction was rationalized. If she was sick, she was transmuting energy. If she was cruel, she was teaching lessons. Reality bent around belief. Outside the cult, alarms were sounding. Families contacted authorities. Media attention increased. Amy's mother and sister publicly begged her to leave. Amy dismissed them. Later that year, she led followers to Hawaii, declaring herself the volcano goddess Pele. Locals protested fiercely. The group was forced to leave under police supervision. By late 2020, Amy Carlson was visibly dying. Her skin turned gray-blue. She was malnourished. She could no longer walk. She claimed to have cancer. Followers framed her suffering as planetary sacrifice. Live streams showed a woman fading away. Attempts to intervene failed. Police were misled. Wellness checks were blocked. Amy was hidden. In April 2021, bedridden in a hotel room, Amy Carlson asked to be taken to a hospital. That request was denied. She died shortly after. What followed was not confusion. It was denial. Her followers kept the body, transported it, decorated it, waited for ascension. When police finally found her remains in Colorado, they found a shrine, not a crime scene, until it was too late. Charges were filed, then dropped. No one was convicted. No one was held responsible. After her death, the group fractured, but survived. New names, new leaders, the same beliefs. Amy Carlson did not die because she believed she was God. She died because everyone around her chose to treat her as one. And that choice, made daily, defended aggressively, and repeated until it was irreversible, is what killed her.